I truly believe one of the ways to make it in today's world is to become an outsider and fall in love with that feeling. Welcome back to the channel, tune in or ghost out. If you were to follow the social trends of many people today, your life would probably be in shambles. Social media addiction, a toxic love for processed foods, an infatuation for people you don't even know, and a slew of mental health issues that are being exploited. Even with all the known downsides, people will squeeze themselves into the mold that society makes just to end up unhappy and destroyed. But so few people are truly willing to sit down and understand what they really want in life. What does the future in your head look like? Not the future that was sold to you off of some TV screen or what your parents told you about, but what would the current version of you be happy with? When I sat down and took time to think about this, it really started putting things into perspective for me. The times that I found myself trying to keep up with the rat race that was society was any time that I had a job. I know you guys have heard me say this a million times, but being unemployed has really changed my perspective on life a lot. As someone who's been holding a job since high school as a pizza delivery boy and has really never had a lapse in their work history, stepping outside of the workforce and kind of getting time to do things that I want to and redirect my course of life has shown me a lot of things. When I was working those jobs, I did a lot of things just to keep up with the people around me. A good example of that would be my first car. I love this car and I still have this car to this day, but when I got this car, I didn't have enough money to buy it cash, so it got me into my first terrible life decision. I bought this car from a used car dealership, but it wasn't a shady one. It was a licensed dealership through Acura, and it was actually an Acura TL 2005. The thing that made this car such a bad decision at such a young age was that after financing and all the fees, it cost me almost $14,000 in 2016. This was way above market price for the time even, but it was under my name and I was really eager to get a car. I had enough to make the monthly payment, so in my head, I could afford this mistake. But if I took a step back, looked at the prices, really crunched the numbers, and had a little bit of patience, I could have been in a way better position. Instead, I rushed through a milestone in my life because I saw everybody else doing it. And you know what I'm talking about. As a high school junior, or maybe even sophomore, depending on when you drove, it was a rite of passage to move from the school bus to the car parking lot. So I did anything I could to get into that student parking lot, and that meant putting myself in insane debt. It was okay in my head because I could show off the car that I had, but I didn't realize that the attention I was getting right now was actually holding me back from making better moves in the future. And I'm not trying to use peer pressure as a justification to making bad financial decisions. I will not sugarcoat it. Before I started taking my finances seriously, I spent money very recklessly. I ate out constantly. I was driving around an insane amount, and honestly, I just didn't feel connected with the money that I was making. It just felt like it was coming in anyway, so there was no point about worrying about the future. And that was in 2016, when everything was a little bit more calm than it is now. But that's what I got blinded by. I saw everybody else around me spending money like it was no tomorrow, and to me, it made me block out a lot of the things that I thought I should be doing. It made me miss the entry on a lot of investments that I cared about, and really, it just delayed me building wealth. For about 4 years, from 2016 when I got that car to 2020, I was spending money like it didn't matter. While I do miss out on my investment opportunities in that time, and I wish I would have put more away, I don't regret the things that I did in those times. I had a lot of fun, and I do think that you have to live life at times. But once the 2020s hit and we were all stuck at home, I realized that most of the things I was spending money on, the going out to eat, doing all these different events, were great activities. But something else that was also great was seeing the money in my account stack up more than I've seen it stack up ever. One of the things I was very lucky to have during the pandemic, I had a job that allowed me to get out the house. My schedule never really changed. It was just very weird seeing all the roads that I would normally see packed with people completely bare and empty. One big change I had to deal with though was finding a way to fill my free time. With the world being shut down, there were no more events to fill up my schedule. No late night car meets or park and chills with the bros, no random nights at the club just cuz, and no random lunches at new restaurants we find. For the first time ever, I was sat with a schedule where most of the time was with myself or my family. I did fill up a lot of my time with gaming, but even then, I still had hours on top of hours to just really sit and reflect on what I wanted. At first, I avoided this. Looking into the mirror can sometimes be one of the hardest things to do, so I put it off for a long time. It wasn't about till the end of 2020, maybe early 2021, that I really sat down and laid out a full plan of what I wanted. And when I looked at that list once it was done, it was very different than the dream that I was being sold. Don't get me wrong, the dream that they tell you to chase is not really a terrible one. Hardworking man with a nice family and a white picket fence, but the things they want you to deal with to get to that point are where I draw my issues at. This entire time I was grinding and stacking money up up during the shutdowns, in the back of my head, I always knew I didn't want to be under somebody my entire life. While I understand the importance of following leadership or having an order, in America, having a manager or a boss is, I think, equivalent to having a parole officer. Their whole job is to literally catch you slipping and make you feel like trash for it. I know some people say that there's good workplaces, but I have not met one yet. I've met the corporate culture that's fake nice, but in return meets you with the brutal realities that they're playing the same game, but I've never really met genuine nice corporate culture. Every corporate office I've been in or job that I've had has been cutthroat. For as crazy as my time as a delivery driver was, that was probably one of the most fun jobs I've had. The team that I work with was on the same mission, make pizzas and deliver them, and the customers that I was delivering to were happy to see me because I was giving them pizza. But once I left that job and started going towards the corporate ladder, I immediately felt the soul leave my body. The entire time I was working, stacking up, grinding, my coworkers became probably my least favorite thing about that job. On top of how the shutdowns changed everything about life, coming into the office and just hearing the conversations and the things that people would say really turned me away from wanting to be a part of the regular group. This is normally what you would call like NPC behavior. People who are in real life but move through it like they're GTA side characters. Their conversations are pointless, they add nothing to the table, and it feels like they're only there to push along a system that doesn't work. And when I was fresh out of high school, man, these were the people that I was trying to get along with. I'm not saying I have ill will for these people or that they're like initially bad, but I think one of the strongest powers of our generation is our ability to call out stuff that doesn't make sense. When other generations would say, well, just get used to it, that's how it is, I had to lick boots my whole life to make it, we'll be the ones to say, nah, we'd rather not do that, even when we know it's going to be met with even more pushback. And we actually learn from these choices. When I made the decision to lock in, keep my head down, go to work, repeat, and just make sure I had money for the future plans, one of my favorite things to do in the office with my coworkers was kind of be like a fly on the wall and just listen in on the conversations and use that as a way to avoid pitfalls. I kid you not. I would just listen to the older folks in the room, tell me what they did to end up where they were, and make sure that I made decisions almost opposite of that. And one of the reoccurring things, and what I'm telling you today, is that what I heard repeatedly was, I wish I would have found myself. I will never forget it. I had a coworker named Mark. This guy was well into his 50s. He worked at the same position that I did, and mind you, I worked as a entry-level broadcast engineer. When he would talk in the office, he would always give the same advice. Don't push yourself too hard. They're not gonna pay you anymore. And he did everything in his power to sit where he's at because the broadcast engineer is the lowest string. You do probably the least. But when he told about his past, he talked about how he started in broadcast engineering on the radio stations, interviewed some of his most favorite bands from the late 80s to the early 90s, and he watched the industry of radio go from the biggest platform to a dying off subgenre in today's time. One thing he said he regrets not doing his entire life was pursuing a radio show. He always worked on them, but said he had no confidence or plan to tackle that idea. He was too busy following the roadmap. He bought his first house at 28, had a child at 29, and by 35, he had no route to the dream that he actually wanted. Even at this age, he still hasn't been able to map it out because he says that he doesn't know who he is. A lot of his life was just moving and reacting and never planning. Fast forward now, he's in the same position he was in the early 2000s. Instead of building and making a secure future, he lives on the edge of poverty now. With all his healthcare costs and his unwillingness to adapt to the broadcasting system, when I left the job a while ago, he was ready for retirement because he had no other options. I don't want to dunk on Mark because that's not the point of this video. Even with all the regrets, I will say Mark came in with a decent attitude every day and he was an overall nice guy. You could just tell there was a lot of pain that he never pursued what he actually wanted to do. He never even really knew what he wanted to do. And a lot of us are at that spot right now. We're at the crossroads of what do I do next and what's the point? And the reason we feel like that is because we haven't looked at the point. The whole reason you're building a life is not to just make a system happy. It's not to just randomly check off these milestones that you were told to chase. And it's certainly not to buy Labubu's and pay $360 a year for Xbox Game Pass. For me, what I learned about when I looked within was that I didn't want to have a bunch of money just to wield it like a sword. Instead, I wanted to use my position to pour into others. Use money as a tool of creation rather than fuel to live. In an age where everybody is okay with being a pawn or being used for some bigger message, I think it takes real balls to call yourself an outsider. I don't know, maybe it's the energy I'm feeling going into the holiday season, but as times get tougher, I get more thankful for that decision that I made to leave. I would have never never woke up to the person that I actually am. I would have stayed unhappy chasing a dream that was pre-built, pre-bought, and sold to everybody. One of the best decisions I've made this entire year actually was starting this YouTube channel. I've said this at the beginning of the channel starting. Getting monetized was never a part of the plan. I just needed an outlet to talk, and we somehow reached monetization. I want to thank you all for that. Like, if you guys didn't support, I wouldn't be in this position now, and I'm not making crazy money, but with this achievement, I'm potentially on the road to making some sort of passive income. These videos are pure fun for me to do, so to see that you can actually make income off this stuff is crazy. And that would have never happened if I didn't take the step and make my first video, even when I felt like an outsider to this. Nobody I know in my life has done this, and of the people that have tried, it hasn't really gone anywhere. But when I made this, I embraced the outsider feeling. I didn't tell anybody that was doing it. I just kind of locked in and wanted to post my videos. Now look at where we are today. It's not a lot to some people, but to me, this is the most accomplished I've felt in a long time. If you take anything away in this video, be okay with taking your own path. Even when it's uncertain, have those talks with yourself and see if it makes sense. Your dream, your sense of accomplishment, and the place that you want to end up at can only be met by your ability to know what those things are. The worst feeling is to go through the grind of something and get to the finish line and realize that it was never the dream that you wanted, but it was the dream that maybe someone else wanted or what you were told to do. So instead, listen to yourself, take the hints that your body gives you, and listen to your mind when it's screaming out for you to pay attention. It's okay to veer off the path that society lays out for you, but I don't know, maybe the psychosis of unemployment is hitting me and this is all just a major cope, but I feel like my life is in a better situation than it was a year ago. I hope my story can inspire you to find yourself or take the steps that you're already taking. But let me know down below, how has life been treating you lately, and do you think you're closer to getting to your breakthrough moment? I take the time to read all the comments, but with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghostthread, signing off.